Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 61 of the On Air Advocate, where at the On Air Advocate, we look to provide education, support, and empowerment for all of those with different abilities, mental and medical illnesses, and their caregivers. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Tammy Flynn, and I am the host and producer of the On Air Advocate, and I'm very excited if you are joining us here this evening, or if you are catching this and watching it on the replay. Now, as you know, for the last few weeks, we have been in a mental health series. And tonight, I'm very excited to have back Dr. Barry with us tonight with a great focus on men's mental health and wellness. And so with that, welcome back.
First of all, thank you for having me. I definitely was excited to get the re-invite. I was like, hopefully I do a good enough job, and that she'll call me again. Indeed.
Oh my gosh, you are awesome. And I've been watching on your blog and on your podcast that you do so much great information that you've been putting out. I'm focused on mental health as a whole, but as men's mental health. And there have been some things that I've just been astonished by. And I think that so many people aren't even aware of the staggering numbers of differences. You know what I'm saying? When we talk about men's health, mental health, and women's mental health, and the support systems that are there, and the numbers of men that are experiencing some of these things in depression, in suicide, and even eating disorders and things like that. And so I'm so happy that you're here to bring that to our platform, because we haven't had that here before in this mental health series.
And I think a lot of the reasons why, especially because when I did my podcast, and I was actually doing it during Men's Health Month in general.
Okay.
But a lot of time when we talk about men's health, they talk about prostate cancer, they talk about colon cancer, they talk about everything, and they don't even really mention it. It's almost like a little blip, like, oh yeah, that's right. Make sure your mental health is fine too.
Right.
And I think a lot of that just has to do with just the way we kind of construct mental health, just mental health in general, and especially mental health disease, right? We make it seem like it's just this thing that happens only to the women, right? We make it seem like being emotional is only a female trait, right? Like that's like
true.
For some reason deemed like a negative thing to be emotional, right? Like think about that. We use that as
in society, that's how it is all the time, that men have to be masculine and they couldn't be dealing with any of these other issues.
And of course, and I think especially when you talk about mental health, especially in men, first of all, you have to almost get rid of that stigma, right? When we talk about just the numbers wise, those who have experienced some type of mental health disorder, in women, it's 1 in 5, but in men, it's 1 in 8. Right. So it's not as if there's this staggering difference of someone who's experienced some type of mental health trauma, some type of mental health fatigue or disease just because we're men. Right. We're not all of a sudden insulated from some of these things here. And I think numbers, even just from in general. Right. I think when we talk about mental health, a lot of us focus on depression. Right. Depression is big, especially in men. 1 in 5. 1 in 5 men have reported. And I think it's important for us to understand when we stress reported, because men don't like to talk. Right. So if you can get men to talk, and then you still have 1 in 5 saying, yes, I've been depressed. Honestly, I look at that number, it's probably closer to 1 in 4. Right. Not really 20%, but it's probably a little bit higher, because there's a whole segment of people who won't get on and say, hey, you know what? I've been depressed.
Right.
I've been this. I've just this feeling of guilt. They won't get on and say these things. So the fact that we can get some men in the room, and 20% of those guys are saying, yeah, yeah, I think I've been depressed, at some point in my life. It's always a very vague thing. Some point in my life, they don't want to own up to it. It's that double standard, that stigma that again kind of hits us right uppercut, right? Oh yeah, you can't be emotional. You got to keep it all in.
Yeah, definitely. And so for men, what do you think the action plan, I guess, even in society with the stigma and bringing that down has to be? Is it more of doctors like yourself bringing up the questions and asking the questions, to your patients when they come in? Do you think that it's more of a media thing, that we need to be putting it out there, that it's okay, for men to talk? Because, even right now with you saying that, when I envision things that talk about mental health and mental wellness, I don't see very many things with even images of men on them. So how do we proactively move forward to bring more awareness to this and to get men, the services that they need as well, and recognizing those numbers to get even more accurate numbers as to what's really truly going on?
I think starting off, it kind of honestly, it kind of starts when you're young, right? When you raise, because I have a daughter and a son, right? And I let them both be emotional. I let them both cry. I let them both act out, right? Because again, I don't say, no, be a man. Like, no, you can't. Like, I don't say things like that because I don't want to diminish his ability to be able to vocalize, like, hey, I'm hurt. Hey, I'm hungry. Hey, I'm sad. I don't want to diminish that. So we start very early from a societal standpoint, suppressing those emotions in men, but allowing it in our girls and our women, right? Like, we allow that to grow, but we don't allow it to grow in our men. So I think from just looking, in the mirror, right, a lot of us just have to kind of start young, because it does start that early. Like, I wish I could say, they start having trouble expressing their feelings when they become adult. And that's just not the case. We know it starts way early. It starts way early. And then when we talk about the media aspect of it, it's right there again. Again, most of your roles that talks about power, that talks about strength, usually talks in the way where they're suppressing all emotions, right? Like, I feel no pain, right? Like, I'm a man of steel, right? Nothing can cut me. We like kind of tie it all into that same machismo type attitude. And then we just bring it along. And then we wonder why it's very difficult when we're not, especially for men, when we're not feeling our best, when we're not feeling extremely happy to say it. Because we know someone out there, may not be the person next to you, right? May not be your significant other, may not be your loved one, but someone's out there going to look at you, and a little bit low over light. And I think the last thing you have to it falls on us, right? It falls, especially as a physician who sees, and I'm happy when I see men in my office, right? That's probably a whole different discussion. Getting a man to come, see about their health, right?
To come into the doctor on a regular basis. That's a whole other story.
So if you guys, and honestly, I really applaud, like I joke when I say a lot of times when I would see like a man in my office, a young man, a boy, when in my office, it was usually, right, some family member who was, I hate to say it, was usually female, who was saying like, no, you're going to the doctor. Like, I don't want to hear it. You're coming with me. You're coming to your appointment. You're taking your medications. And so it was usually some outside force forcing them in, right? And then once I got them, a lot of times, and I'll be honest, a lot of our physicians, we drop the ball. So when we do get them in our office, we don't ask
all the questions that you should.
Nope. We do not ask it. We tiptoe around it, or we just totally disregard it as if he's got a job, he's got a family, he can't be depressed. There's nothing wrong with him. So we don't even ask the question. And he may be there like hoping and wishing, like, please just ask me so I can say it. Like, because most of us, and again, I'll take it right on the chin for all of us, right? We're not going to say it.
Right.
I think we have to get over the fact that, I'll give them a space to be open. No, you almost have, you're going to have to pull it out.
Right. And I know that when I was talking to Dr. Garais this past week, she spoke about that when you're asking the questions, you do need to be direct. You need to not try to sugarcoat it or go around it, because sometimes then you're going to kind of get an answer that really isn't clear. If you're very clear, like, are you experiencing sadness? Do you have thoughts of hurting yourself? And we kind of referred back to a lot of those questionnaires now that have been given out at the doctor's offices. It seems like people, that's more proactive now. Like, you're getting that every time you're at a doctor's office where it's asking you these checkbox of questions. Now, I think it's easier to check the other box if it's a checkbox versus if a doctor approaches, because a lot of times you probably could tell on someone's face if they're not, being
truthful.
truthful. About that. But it does seem in that sense that there's a little bit more of a push. I've noticed in more doctors' offices, they are giving those full kind of more mental wellness sheets when you come into the doctor to kind of get more of an overview.
Definitely.
Do you find that's something that's utilized a lot more?
That's definitely helped, because actually it's funny, because you'd be surprised what a patient is willing to put on paper as long as you don't ask them about it. Right. So as long as you don't ask them about it, they'll say, yeah, I felt sad. Sure. Right. Who else? Everyone's felt sad, right? Like, yeah, there's been times where it's been trouble getting to work, and yeah, I've worried about money. Yes, I've worried about my health. You get it to write it down, they'll do it there. But then when they write it down, if I don't take it to paper, look at it, and actually ask, like, hey, I saw here that you said sometimes you feel sad. Like, what do you mean by, like, if I don't, and that happens where they're writing the paper. And again, and I hate to say it, a lot of us are doing like the mental health checkups now because they pay for it. Right. Like, so we're allowed to bill for it. So now, of course, when you're allowed to bill, all of a sudden you start doing it. Same thing when we talk about obesity checks and tobacco and all those types of histories. Before, it was just, if they smoke, they smoke. If they're obese, they're obese. But now it's, I get paid if I do obesity counseling.
Oh, okay.
I get paid if I get tobacco counseling. I get paid if I. So there's some financial incentive to ask that question. But hey, I'm glad they're doing it, because we weren't doing it at all. We weren't doing it at all before. So it's that two-parter. Like, I've actually found more, especially my male patients, are able to write it down on a piece of paper because they don't think I'm going to ask them.
And then what happens when you do ask them? What do you feel? Do you feel that opens the door to actually, getting mentally healthy? You know what I'm saying? To those next steps, or do you feel like it's a lot of regression?
It definitely opens the door, because now, even when it's open, they say, oh, well, I didn't really mean sad by that. I meant sad. Like, so now they have to try to justify their sadness. They're trying, and these are thoughts and things that they've never had to do before. They never had to say, well, I'm sad because of this, but not because of that. And the reason is because they're assuming that, like, I don't want you to, put on a piece of paper, this magical piece of paper that for some reason will go to every single person in the world that I'm depressed. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want you to put on this magical piece of paper that I'm anxious. I don't want you to put on this piece of paper. So they try to justify it. And a lot of times it's kind of funny to see, because you could tell they've never had a conversation like this. So them even having to try to justify it and talk about it is new to them. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's how much you get. You get them at least to kind of talk and, backtrack and say, well, no, I'm sad because of this, not sad because of that, because they already put it on paper. So I know you're sad for something. And they're able to, like, kind of justify it. But, like, everyone feels sad. And that's usually the key. Everyone feels this way. Like, it's not just me. And that helps them because they don't want to feel alone. So if everyone is feeling this way, if all guys do it, then it's not a problem for them.
Right. And in being able to be more protective in chatting with someone, I know last week we were talking about so many of the hotline numbers now have turned to also texting, where you can just text a word and get someone to have a conversation with you. And you don't have to be concerned that, like, the SWAT team is going to show up at your house. I think that's what happens sometimes too. If we admit that we're sad or we're having these feelings, that we feel like all of these crazy things are going to happen, or we're going to be in trouble in some way. And I think it's breaking that stigma too, letting people know that it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to ask for help.
Oh, that I think that is so true. Just trying to reduce the amount of barriers that are placed in front of just people in general, but especially men, to open up their feelings does a world of wonders, right? So again, if they could text it, right? Again, I think that's why the paper works so well, because I'm just talking to this piece of paper. This piece of paper is not going to ask me a question back.
Right.
I just shoot a text message. All right, they're not going to ask, like, all right, yeah, I'm feeling kind of sad. Yes, I'm feeling this. And especially when we talk about these types of hotlines where men commit suicide. And I want to, and I have to say commit suicide, because even though you'll hear statistics that make it seem like it's only women, yes, they perform or they attempt suicide much more frequently, but men do it, they're at 4 times the rate higher than women, right? Like they actually go through with it at 4 times the rate. And I think a lot of that, you have to point to the fact that they didn't have any outlet to do it. They something was building up for a long time, and they had no avenue to say, I'm hurt, I'm hurting, somebody help me. Like and it's not as if it wasn't there, but they never had the opportunity, or was never really even taught to seek it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, what would your, I guess, recommendations be? Do you devise, like if you have a patient that comes in and they are experiencing this sadness, do you kind of work with them? I've heard a lot of talk about like mental health wellness plans, like having an action plan. What is your course of action as a doctor, in helping men become more aware, of that it's okay to not be okay, and how to move forward with that? Whether that's different resources, that you provide out there to patients, or active steps that you think that if somebody is listening, that they should seek out.
I think one of the earliest things you do, especially with men, right? Especially, and we all have men in our family who are super reserved, don't say anything to anybody, keep everything to themselves, allowing them to be open, right, without any judgment, right? And honest, for men, we feel how come you don't just do any type of conversation like that, like is perceived as judgment, and they just don't go for it. So for a lot of the time, especially for the men who were in my office, I would say, you know what, tell me what's going on. Like, how are you feeling? And then I would just kind of listen. I would just kind of listen and say, that's understandable, right? Because they've never had anyone say it's actually okay to
not be okay.
Right. That's perfect. It's actually okay not to be okay. And they've never experienced that type. And I don't go like, do this initially, because then
they'll shut down.
They're shut down because, again, these are people who don't think they have a problem. So if you walk into a person's office and you don't feel you have a problem, and now they're saying, not only do you have a problem that no one has allowed you to talk about for years, this is how you need to treat it. They're like, all right, this guy's crazy. I'm going to somebody else who just asked me what's my weight and what's my blood pressure. Right. Like that's, and then I make sure I tie in, like, hey, if your mental health's not fine, especially for my fit folks, if your mental health's not fine, you're sad, you're depressed, you can't go to the gym, you can't work out, you don't have the energy to do those things. Right. So I try to, you almost have to tie it into how it's going to affect their physical. You almost have to, like, how is it going to affect their social? Like if your mental is fine, then you'll be able to go out more. If your mental is fine, you'll be able to work out more. If your mental is fine, you'll be able to go to work, make money more. And especially because money has always been a big factor in men, especially when we talk about depression and anxiety. Right. And it's because of, we've talked about it, this stigma of what a quote unquote man is. And that man is rooted in financial success. Right. And if you have a man who is not financially successful, if you have a man who cannot financially take care of not only himself, but his family, his significant other, when you have men, and those are the men, especially in my line of practice, who usually have most of the problems. Right. And because they have most of the problems, we've never taught them a way to deal with it. Right. We let our little girls cry it out, hug on my shoulder, lay on my lap, talking with your friends. We've let the girls do that. We don't let the guys do that.
Right. So I wonder, as young men, what is the answer to that? Because even when we were talking about the media, and you're thinking back to even every movie I've seen in the last year, there's no movie that portrays in any way, shape, or form a young boy not being strong, not holding that role. It's not like you see a lot of empathy, you know what I'm saying? Oh, yes. And emotion. And so how do we ever change that from the beginning so that mentally they're able to process things of sadness? They're able to process where they're at, in that it's okay to not be okay. I don't know how we get to that I mean, I guess that point, because like you're saying, it does start from the beginning. And as I know, as a female also in the business world, yes, there's such a high regard given to men. Like, you should be able to support your family and you should be able to handle all this pressure, and men don't cry and all of these things. How do we, I don't know how we break that.
I think I think the examples that we're starting to see, where we're having more and more, and because, you know, just the way our society works, more and more like celebrities like coming out and saying, you know, mental health like is it, right? Like, make sure you take care of your mental health. And we're having in football players, we're having basketball players, we're having hockey, we're having all of these sports that we've always been deemed as a highly masculine sport. And you have figures in there saying, no, I can't even get on a plane because I get claustrophobic and I get so anxious that I got to drive to the next game, right? I can't even, after a Sunday football game and after all of the hard hitting, I have to go to my house and reserve for 2 days because I'm so anxious. For, like, when you have men who they're not used to seeing that, and they're actually like portraying it and saying, yes,
Right.
it's okay to have it. Like, that's where, especially for our young folks,
We're
unfortunately,
changed.
right? Like, our young folks have to see people who they revere saying it's okay.
Right. And I think you're right. You're spot on with that, with all of the wonderful people we've lost in the last few years, wonderful male people that were prominent figures. I think that has brought in a lot more light to this as a whole, for men and for women, because we have lost, you know, so many public figures to make it known, like, there is sadness going on that no one's, you know, that no one's talking about.
And I think the ones we lose, especially for our celebrities, when we lose them, it's so big because especially my initial point was money is a big issue, but these are people who finances were not like the reason why they were so sad, right? Finances, they were financially okay, and a lot of them were doing very, very, very well.
Right.
And still, that was not enough. So our eyes get open, especially I think as a society, when celebrities commit suicide, because we're like, hold on, like, they had it all, or they had what I thought was all, right? They didn't have their mental health. It wasn't there, but they had the money, they had the fame, they had the access. And I thought that's all you needed to
drive happiness. Right. Right. Instead of looking that, you know, happiness comes from within. You know, the greatest form of success is happiness within each and every one of us, you know, that we derive from ourselves. Now, to go off of the course a little bit for suicide and depression and anxiety, I wanted to touch base a little bit on eating disorders in men. I think that that's something even more than suicide or depression, like that you just don't ever hear about. You don't ever hear about. And I know, though, definitely with the push of men's health and working out, and obviously in the whole realm of bodybuilding and athletes and fitness, I definitely think you can see it if you look close. But where do those numbers lie for men that have eating disorders? Do you know?
I'm not sure in terms of, yes, not necessarily from an eating disorder, but what's been shown in the studies from various causes is, and this is the thing, men actually deal with body dysmorphic order at a higher rate than we would even like think about. And reason being is because for a lot of us are just sad. A lot of us may see like the typical alpha, again, this is that random man. They see that alpha male who works out, who looks great, who gets all of the women, all of the fame, and they know whatever they do, they're not going to look like this person right here. And then regardless of what they do, they're not going to look like this person. So what they do, they go in hyperdrive. They do men. When I tell you, I got a lot of men who go on diets. Like this is trying to go on these fad diets is not a woman thing. A lot of men try to go on diets, and because they're men and they always go to the extreme, they go on these ridiculous calorie restrictions. They take a lot of exogenous medications, testosterone. I had one patient who was taking a medication that like you would treat breast cancer for it. an estrogen blocker, because for some reason, if you take testosterone and an estrogen blocker, you decrease the amount of fat and you look better, right? Like these are the lengths that men will go to get that picture of like the perfect male body.
Right.
And they take a lot of drugs. The ones who, again, I'm not, and of course we don't want to get any of our fitness folks in a titty, right? Like, yes, you can work out, right? Like we're not saying, but like there's plenty of people, in that gym who are there more than the employees, who take a lot of exogenous medications. And from an internist standpoint, when I see some of the numbers, right? When I see their liver function being affected, when I see their kidney function being affected, when I see the ability to even reproduce being affected, and that not being seen as a deterrent because they want to look good.
Right.
Like that's the problem. Right. They want to look good, and someone's told them they look good because they look like that person they seen in the gym. They look like the person they seen on TV. So the risk is I can either not look good and, be able to reproduce and have my liver when I'm 50, or I can just live my life right now and just cross my fingers.
Right. And I think that you find, and maybe you could validate this or not validate it, but I feel like some of the bulkier, more aggressive diet medications, like the hydro cuts and whatnot, that the GNC, of all of those different things, and then beefing up mass and all of that, though there are tons of women that are in the fitness world, and, I work out 5 days a week, you know what I'm saying? Like you do that to be healthy. It seems like there's a beefy push when it comes to the type of strong, different vitamins and fat cutting products that are out there for men, and not really realizing how extreme it is, when you mix together all of those different things and the high levels of, caffeine that are put inside of them.
Oh, yes.
And it mixing together, and everything's a protein shake. I mean, I feel like you find that there's many more men that have like the mass protein shakes. Yes. Yeah. My father was, he's no longer with us, but my father was a professional power lifter. And so, I mean, I grew up with like tons of vitamins and tons of protein shakes and tons of all of that. And it just seemed like men as a staple, they go to that. The hardcore vitamins, the hardcore mass builders and all of that, versus more women. I think we dabble in that, but we dabble in a lot of other things too.
It's funny because, right, because for women, and I've seen, especially in the gym and just in my patients, women don't want to be seen as muscular. So they stay away from like the protein shakes and those types of things and lifting weights. Like they stay away from those types of things, even though those things do great from a weight loss standpoint. They stay away from it because they don't want to look quote unquote muscular, right? Because that's the stigma we have on them. You look muscular. But for men, we go overdrive on that side, right? We want to look bulky. We want to, we have the hump neck and everything else, and have muscles everywhere, because that is a sign of like the alpha, right? Like that is a sign of like, oh, this is the person I don't want to go after the gym, right? Because he's lifting, 1,000,000 pounds over his head, and I can't do any of that. Right. And it's funny because those types of people will ironically deter people from going to the gym, especially our men, because men don't want to see like the alpha competing with them because they know they can't compete with them.
Right. So for mental health purposes, if you are that person that's in that sad place, in a depressive state, anxiety, and needs to start doing some things that are good, because there is so much stress that is relieved with any kind of movement of our bodies, and that can just walking, somewhere. Yeah, I can see how that can be a deterrent for men as well. And in talking to you, I feel like, we always say as women, like, oh, we have it harder. But, like the more that I think about this and all of the layers and complexness to all of it, I feel like it's pretty equal.
It's funny, especially, and I have to always have the conversation with my wife. With women deal with, first of all, I'm going to tell you right now, women deal with a lot that I think if men dealt with, like it would absolutely crush us. But they're so their strength is in trying to overcome, especially women, that they just do it, right? Like they like, all right, yes I know, glass ceilings there, boom, it's happening. Like they already know. They're walking into rooms where they know they're going to get less pay, right? They're walking into rooms where they know showing an authoritative tone makes them, that B word, right? Like they're walking in with these attitudes, and they're like, you know what, I still have to succeed. But if you put a man in that situation, and all of a sudden the privilege that he holds as a man doesn't benefit him any leverage, right? Like all of a sudden, because I'm a man, like you can't be emotional, be quiet, right? Like, and then so that they get reserved, right? You're a man, so make all the money. They're reserved again, and we haven't at an early age, we haven't been taught how to like express like, oh, I'm hurting too. So we go into things like the eating disorders, we go into the things like drugs, we go into things like alcohol, we go into all of these substances that allow us to quote unquote escape. And then now we're able to be a little bit more freer because I'm under the influence. I'm allowed to be a little more freer and say why I'm angry because I got some drugs in my system, right? Or you know what? I want to look amazing, and regardless of my diet, I'm not looking like this alpha person in the gym. So I got to take these medications. I got to be bulimic. I got to be anorexic. I got to do all of these things here because society doesn't give me that fair shake. At least for our women, they'll be like, well, you're a woman, so it's okay if you're sad. You're a woman. It's okay if you're a little behind. It's okay if you don't make enough money. We at least give them that little nudge, even though we shouldn't. But we're usually the ones kind of depressing the women. Whereas men, if you're in that same position, you're crushed, right? And I think that's why our suicide rates are so much higher, because we know, like, if we're at the point where we can't do anything, society is not here to help us.
Right. There definitely isn't that push. And I hope that, just even your podcast, the things that you're doing, the push that we have for mental health as a whole in the United States, really starts to drive some more awareness and teaching our young boys that it's okay to have feelings. And I think that also, within the home, within the media, those I love yous, I've heard from so many over time that, especially in our older generations, how their father like never said, I love you, or they never gave hugs, or they never gave anything. And so I feel like that's kind of a simplistic way of starting in our new generations with our kids. You know what I'm saying? Where fathers can hug and I love you and all of this, to be able to start to show that emotion and, showing boys and girls that it's okay. It's okay to express.
Be free. And honestly, I love my parents, right? Tell your friend you love them, right? Like, why aren't we telling our friends we love them? I tell my friends, I tell my homeboys all the time, love you, man. Love you. Like, I end the conversation, all right, bro, love you. And they keep it, like, it's, for them, it's, at first, you should, of course, initially it was like, it was like a head scratcher. But after a while, like, if we do, everything we do says, I love this person, why not just say it? Like, there's no, especially men. I'm talking to the men right now, right? If you know your friend for years who's been there through thick and thin, just tell him you love him. Call him up right now. Say, hey man, thanks for everything you do. Love you. And hang up the phone, right? You don't even have to wait for the awkward pause. Just hang up the phone after you do it.
You know what I always say too, like on Facebook, because so many people are on there, people are like, you're always like hearting it up. Like, I got heart emojis. I got the GIFs, the hearts. And I'm like, why am I just going to give somebody a thumbs up? Why can't I just spread love? It doesn't really matter what the topic is. You know what I'm saying? Love everybody.
Yes. I love it. And I think, and that's probably one of the more simplistic things we can do, right? Just start using a word, start, because again, the word love brings so much emotion, right? And allows people to be open. So if not only you're telling your son, you're telling your cousin, you're telling your dad, but you're telling your best friend, you're telling like, he does love me. Like, of course I love it. Everything I do says I love you. So why not just say it? And once you're comfortable enough to be able to say it, they'll be comfortable enough to say it back to you. And then it seems like it's nothing.
Right. Oh my gosh. So is there anything else resource wise that you would say? I know we're going to add some phone numbers for like our national suicide line and all of that sort of thing,
Oh, yes.
but any other resources that you actively go to that you think are great, like online supports or community resources, United States wide resources, whatever it may be that you like?
What I love to tell, I always tell my patients, especially because I when I do my live streams, people are kind of chiming in from everywhere. I always say, what I want you to do is Google Mental Health Association and just Google your city, like Mental Health Association and your city, because there's usually is some type of connection there that people don't even realize. People don't even realize the vast majority of therapists, counselors who are looking to want to like say, hey, I want to help you. Please let me help you. But we're not even finding them. So they're just sitting there. They're just sitting there unused. Right. Our government has a huge push and it gives a lot of financial grants to organizations just on the basis of mental health, to the point where if you're a mental health and you're a veteran, here you go. Mental health women, here you go. Mental health child, here you go. So I think the MHA, Mental Health Association, is a great national website because of the amount of local chapters around. And I think in this day and age, not being able to get to a counselor isn't really, isn't an excuse anymore. It's really not a good excuse anymore because a lot of our counselors are now taking it virtual. So a lot of our counselors are saying, hey, you know what? You
Let's
can be
jump
in
on like this.
You're in Timbuktu. Mm-hmm. You go to this site here, click this link. We'll video conference, right? I don't have to be in the same room with you anymore to get you through. And a lot of the mental health visits that I've had, because I got to a point as a physician where I used to just book patients just for a mental health. Like my staff would call it the mental health talk because it'd be like 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I say, all right, just book someone for the 30-minute the mental health block. And they get a whole 30 minutes. And I'm just sitting there, all right, talk to me. And then they just talk. Right. And a lot of times, and it's weird because especially for our men, a lot of times we have no avenue to just talk.
Right.
We have a lot of avenues to do. We have a lot of avenues to perform, but to just talk is just not there. So you give someone that opportunity to just talk and say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to let you do all the talking. You let me know where we go from here. And it makes such a world of wonders.
Yeah. And I think that in that you can discover so much to possibly lead them into the right directions if they are having issues just by listening to them where they're at. So if our folks here that are watching tonight want more of you,
sure.
Where are all the places they can find you?
Sure. Yeah, so I am Dr. Barry Pierre that's my social media handle. So I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, as well as Instagram. My website, you can go to drbarrypierre.com or drpierresblog.com, whichever is easier to get. I have a weekly podcast that talks about a lot of various medical, mental health, public health issues, but it talks it in very layman's terms, right? Because I want to make it accessible and easy for you, right, to empower yourself for better health. Right. So, and that's Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry. And it's available on all your favorite podcasting sites, including iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play. Google Podcast is out now, and I'm almost sure I'm on there. So wherever you listen to podcasts, it's there. And for some reason, if you don't have any of those apps, and I can tell you, most of you already have that app built in on your phone, you can go to my website, Lunch Learn Pod, and you'll get availability of all those episodes as well.
They're all right there. And then you can, what I love about that is that on any of them, you can kind of scroll down, especially the way that, I do them and you have that same snapshot. That way, if you're looking for something, let's say that's talking about your gallbladder, or you're looking for something that's talking about men's health, you don't have to you can, target the ones that really specifically are tuned into you. The other thing is that I know that you just released a new book.
Oh, yes.
And so what's that all about?
So as a physician, one of the things that I realized very early is that even physicians get pigeonholed. It's weird, right? Even physicians get pigeonholed to doing one thing, and it's see the patient, see the next patient, see the patient, see the next patient. And what's been happening, especially when it comes to physicians, and especially when it comes to job satisfaction, and this is where and I don't like to call this a celebrity, but where most people, when they think of physicians, they think like, wow, look at this high paying field. They're super happy. They got no problems. and you have a lot of physicians who are committing suicide. The rates are absolutely, I wish I had the numbers, are absolutely ridiculous. Any suicide is too high, but I even to the point where you have medical students who go through 4 years of medical school and are committing suicide while in medical school.
Really?
The amount of stress that is placed on like our profession is disheartening, especially when they don't see the return. So when they see the TV and they see that, oh, the physician is this, the physician is like, they see all of these things. So now they've went through all this blood, all this sweat, all this tears, and now they're not even appreciated. And now they have people who aren't in the medical field telling them what to do, people who aren't in the medical field telling them how to treat. They become dissatisfied, then they burn out, and then they leave the profession. So what I did, I said, you know what? Once a year, I'm just going to like map out, some things I would like to do for the year that really doesn't have to do anything with medicine, but may, and say, these are my goals. These are almost like my New Year's resolutions, and I'm putting it out there for the world so y'all can kind of keep me accountable for doing it.
That is awesome. And the new book, are you able to drop that below this?
Oh, I would definitely will.
With the link and all of that kind of good stuff.
Yep, it's drpierre'sblog.com/power, and I'm gonna drop the link right in the comments. It's a free ebook. Again, this is my second one. Like my first one, Power and Affirmation, is something that is just like part two, like say, hey, you know what? And it's what actually spawned me to do podcasting. It would spawn me to write the first book I did. It's just kind of this driver. And this year we have a lot of great big plans. I'm actually bringing my wife, who's been a guest on this show, into my world to try to get her to podcast. So a lot of great things planned just from it.
Oh, that's going to be fun. It'll be like a family affair. You can bring the kids on too.
Yes, we can't wait. It's definitely some exciting times for the upcoming year, for sure.
That is wonderful. Well, I thank you so much for taking, I don't know, I think it's almost been 45 minutes, an hour with us tonight.
I love it. I love talking, and I also love talking to you. And I believe some of the amazing thing you do with just this platform and reaching out to, because again, you're really serving a community that's never been talked to. Right. And I think that's one of the most powerful things about the on-air advocate, right? Like these are people who've been like screaming like, wow, I wish somebody would talk for me. Right. Instead of to me, I wish somebody would talk for me. And that's what you're doing. So any time I have an opportunity to come on, I'm going to try to give it my best.
Well, know that now you said that. So I'm going to be calling you.
I love it.
Now that you put that out there. Yes. So I thank you so much for spending the time with us again this evening. And you guys can catch any of our other podcast tutorial videos or any other content right on our website on onairadvocate.com. I thank you guys for sticking with us to this whole mental health series. We are running it through all the way through August 13th. So there will be many others that will be coming on. But I thank you, Dr. Berry, for your time and your information. Definitely go check out his podcast. It's amazing, and he covers like everything.
Everything.
There's everything out there.
I accept requests too. So I have a lot of patients who are like, "Oh, can you talk about it?" I'm like, "Oh, sure, all right."
Mm-hmm. And I think you're on. What podcast are you on right now? Are you going to?
I'm on episode. Oh no, I'm episode 75. Episode 75 this week.
75. Yes. So we're going to hit 100 soon.
So, it's surprising. I didn't, when I started at 1, I'm like, well, you know what? Maybe I might not want to keep doing this. And now we're, 74 episodes later.
Well, I'm going to have to start talking so I can catch up because I'm at 61. 61.
I love it. Oh, don't forget to tell them to join the group. We want to see more people in the group.
Oh yeah, definitely, to join our private on-air advocate community. Thank you so much, Dr. Berry. You're on top of it tonight. So you just go right to the top of our Facebook page, hit the visit group blue button, and you can become part of our community so that we can talk on a regular basis, and you can share your story within there as well.
And I'm in there. So again, if you have any medical questions that if you just at me, hey Barry, Dr. Barry, and boom, I'm jumping right in there. So
Well, and we're going to be throwing out a lot more as the fall comes, a lot more question and answer, in there, throwing out some medical stuff, finding out from the folks that are in the group, who else is experiencing. I mean, a lot of us have kiddos in there that have different abilities, but us as parents and adults and individuals, a lot of times have health conditions as well. So it's trying to kind of find out that mixture within the group of also medical backgrounds of what people are struggling with. So definitely after this summer little thing wraps up, and we're hitting August. It's August 1st today. So,
yes,
we're on the roll to almost back to school.
Time is moving.
Yes. So again, thank you all, and everybody have a great evening. Thanks for watching the On Air Advocate. Bye-bye, Dr. Barry.
Thank you.